I'm Matt Landau from VRMB, and this is Unlocked, Season 9, Home Runners. Today's episode features Karen Hunt, who owns Carolina Elegance. And before vacation rentals, Karen was selling candy and rice, which is a statement I don't think I've ever used on this podcast before. But Karen was selling candy and rice big time. She ascended quickly in the Mars organization, selling Uncle Ben's rice and M&Ms. She had a direct line to John Mars, the chairman and heir. Karen was practicing this whole time her question asking and her listening skills, and eventually she moved into the wine business, doubling Mondavi and Francis Ford Coppola's businesses respectively, and then eventually working with a company called Dow, who basically paid Karen whatever she wanted to serve as president. And this is what the discussion is about today. It's about taking on your personal role as president. This eventually gave way to Karen's vacation rental business, which is when her presidency really began. It's a discernibly different kind of business from most large vacation rental managers. It's much more of a lifestyle business. And I say that in the most admirable way possible. In this interview, Karen and I talk about the limited edition world of wine and what lessons it can teach us about independent vacation rental brands. We also talk about Karen's definition of success, and as a teaser, it ain't about scale at all costs. Finally, we talk about why you should always watch out for golfers. Yes, golfers. I love Karen's focus on learning and how it has paid off for her in freedom and in fun. Today's interview is brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. And as with each episode this season, we've kicked off by asking Karen, what does the phrase home runners mean to you?
I would say that home run to me is not so much about me, but it's more about the guest and making sure that they have a 5-star time. And it's not just from when they get to our 2 properties, but from when they ask me for a quote, till they book, till we send the guidebook, till I just check in with them while they're there, until they leave, and then they write a review. I kind of define myself as the Nordstroms of vacation rentals, because I go over and above whatever it takes. I have to bite your lip sometime, but you just do whatever makes the guest happy. And to me, that's a home run if I get a 5-star review from a guest that's super happy and wants to come back.
I think that's the first application of the answer to the question as it relates to guests, actually. Most people typically talk about the people who are operating.
Yeah. To me, it's all about the guest.
One of the coolest things about our colleagues is that almost everybody got into this accidentally without training, and they bring with them these incredible former lives, oftentimes professions that end up being their great superpower as a vacation rental professional. Talk about what you were doing pre-vacation rentals in your life.
Okay, my job was working for Mars Incorporated, like M&M's, Snickers, Three Musketeers, Uncle Ben's rice, Calcan dog food.
Wait, you just you just threw in 2 crazy ones. I was all excited. I did not know that they also do rice and dog food.
Yes, and Dove ice cream.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I started in the Uncle Ben's rice division, and then I got promoted, and then I moved to New York, and it was just a fabulous deal. Then Mars, I was traveling every week, so I think that was the impetus for me getting into vacation rentals later, because I knew what you expected when you're on the road 45, 46 weeks a year.
Wait, so you're literally traveling around the country selling rice?
Rice and candy and setting up new accounts and distributors and
With like supermarkets or something?
yes, supermarkets. But you think about M&Ms. I remember one time I asked John Mars, I said, So where's our audience? Where do we go? And he said, Karen, everywhere you can buy a bag of Coke, you better be able to buy a bag of M&Ms. And I'll never forget that. It was very simple.
So that's John Mars, literally the founder of the company.
Yes, John Mars, the founder of the company.
You had a direct line to him.
Well, I was pretty precocious, and if he was at a meeting, I would make my way over there and talk to him and try to find out things about him and what he was doing, what made him tick. I had the opportunity when Mars sponsored the Winter and Summer Olympics, the only year they were both in the same year. And so I had the opportunity of going to Brussels, Belgium, and helping set up those. It was in Albertville, France, and in Barcelona, Spain, were the two. And then I had a little more exposure to him then as well. But so I was in New York and was calling on one of our top accounts one day and met a guy in the lobby who didn't seem like he knew too much about what was going on. And I tried to give him some advice in the lobby about the buyer, because the same buyer that bought my candy was the same buyer that was going to buy his ice cream. But
Okay.
he didn't seem to care too much about my suggestions, which I thought was kind of funny. And about 90 seconds after he went into the office of the buyer, he was back in the lobby because he got kicked out because he didn't listen to what I said. And he introduced himself to me, and he said, "My name is Jerry Greenfield, and we're starting an ice cream company. And you seem like you know this market. And so I just wanted to see if we could chat a little bit." So
Oh my gosh, what was your reaction?
I didn't know who they were. I mean, I had never had Ben and Jerry's. I just thought I was helping somebody, but he had on blue jeans and a t-shirt, a faded t-shirt, and a raggedy beard, and hair was all everywhere. And I had no idea who he was.
But it didn't cross your mind that this person didn't respect my opinion enough to actually listen and is now asking me for a job? How rude?
No, no, because you have to learn things from other people, and a lot of people have helped me along the way. So I ended up helping him, and then later I interviewed with them and got a job with Ben and Jerry's. And I was in the southeast working for them, which was a great up and coming market. Um, and then I was going to be transferred to San Francisco, which was a big market, but not the biggest market. And literally on Friday night, before the movers were picking my stuff up on Saturday, they called me and said, "We need you in New York because Kevin, the guy up there in New York, had just quit." And that was the number one territory. So I had to go to New York, which was great. I loved it anyway. So
That's almost like the player on the soccer team who's starts the game on the bench is really just waiting for somebody to get injured or someone not to show up and step into that role and just crush it. And and how long did that last? That sort of ascent in that world of sales.
my whole career, I wanted to go faster with Mars than I could because it's such a big company, and they pay very well. The positions don't open very often. And then so I jumped ship and went to Ben and Jerry's. And sometimes I think, well, that was not a good decision, but I think it was a good decision. I'm still good friends with the senior vice president of Mars that hired me. He's still good friends of mine. And he says you're the best salesperson we ever had before or since. He said, "We hated to see you go, but you were just impatient." So, well, that's just who I am. That's who I am. I'm impatient.
And this corporate world has almost like a way of operating. There's they identify people who are growing and who are really good, and they um, promote them and they try their best to keep them. And how did you end up uh, taking the leap from that consistent um, growth in corporate America into something now completely different?
Well, I did it during that time. I bought my first condo in 2006 and started renting it out just myself on the side. I bought it first to just be closer to my family's in Charleston. I wasn't living in Charleston. I moved around like 16 different times. I was all over the place. So I decided to buy a condo in the hometown. I'm the only one in my family that's ever moved away.
They all still live there.
Everybody still lives there. So I moved away, and then I wanted to go home and visit, but I wanted my own place. So I bought the first condo, and then I wanted to travel. I got a divorce, and I thought I want to go and travel and do some things that are going to cost a lot of money. And about that time, one of my good friends that was in marketing for Mars, and I knew her from a couple of other places, but she said, "Well, I'm doing this project for this new company coming out." She lived in Austin, Texas. And she said, "This home away," and she explained it to me. And she said, "Why don't you put your condo on there since it's not your primary residence and rent it out, and then you'll make some extra money, and then you'll be able to travel and have money to do other things you want."
And what was your initial reaction to that idea?
Sure, why not? I went and I looked into home away, and there were three things I think back then: vacation rental by owner, home away, and VRBO. They were separate, or I thought they were separate. I don't know, but anyway, I an Airbnb, and so I just did it, and I was shocked how much. I think my total expenses on that place were like 1,700 a month, and I was making between 4 and 6,000 a month. Was crazy.
So you're like, this beats selling rice.
Well, I still sold rice. Then I was moved to San Francisco. First, I was moved to Texas for Ben and Jerry's, and then I moved to San Francisco. And in the meantime, another condo in the same complex that I had came on the market for. It was during 2007 and 8. People were having to sell stuff for less, so I bought a second one and literally closed on it on a Wednesday, and it was rented on Monday because I it was just I did everything the same way I'd done the first one, and then I bought a third one.
But I need to understand how much of your bandwidth, because you're climbing the corporate ladder fast. How much of your bandwidth is being spent on this side hustle?
Well, because I traveled all the time, I was in hotels at night. I would just work on the condos. And I was trying to look back to see when I first met you, Matt. It was a long time ago. It was one of the Airbnb were having the conferences, and I started going to conferences, and I literally would learn so much that I'd have to cancel the next conference because there's so much in my head. I felt like I was going to explode, and I didn't learn as much as I probably could have because it was overwhelming to me, the people,
Mm.
and
And so were there moments in which you said to yourself, this is distracting me from my core job? Or were there moments in which you were like, gee, this is really fun. I should stop doing my core job?
oh, I was thinking that I'm just going to do this to get big enough so that I can do this as my whole livelihood. I just want to.
You saw that from the
Yep,
beginning.
I did. I made a lot of money for everybody else, and I thought at some point it's going to be time for me to make money. And the interesting thing is, I still, I mean, when I moved to San Francisco, then I wanted to get in the wine business. And so my very first job in the wine business was vice president of sales for the Mondavis. So a female from outside the business, and that's my first job. That's looking back, I think that was, if I'd known the industry is a good old boy and there are no women at the top, unless you're somebody that your last name is the name of the winery. And even the Mondavis didn't put the daughters in the business. So it was I just did it, I just kind of do things. I don't probably should look around and figure out what I'm doing, but I kind of guess I don't.
No, but there's something really beautiful, I think. Of course, we're huge advocates of attending events and asking experts and commiserating with your colleagues, but there's something beautiful about entering a new opportunity without any bias, any preconceptions, anyone telling you what to do or what not to do. Like there's something beautiful, almost artistic about that type of um, drive.
Yeah, that's interesting. I appreciate that. I think that that's just who I've been. I had a really crappy growing up childhood, so not going into that, but I think because of that I became a survivor and knew that I had to do whatever it took to take care of me. Nobody else was going to take care of me, so I had to do it whatever it took. So that's what I did.
And what was the moment that you um, shifted in realizing that you've been really good at making money for other people and now it's time to work on something yourself? Do you remember a particular moment?
I think so. I went from vice president of sales of the Mondavis, and then Francis Ford Coppola hired me to come run his wine business. So I did that, and these
Which, by the way, I love how you're just casually throwing out these humble brags. They're
well,
fantastic.
that it's the honest truth. But these are allowing me to travel all over the United States, and then I doubled his business in 5 years, and then I got a phone call from a guy, George Dow, who asked me if I'd come do for him what I've done for the Mondavis and for Coppola. And I had decided that if I moved anywhere else, I needed to be a president, not a vice president. I needed to learn the other areas of business. And so the different areas of business, and the smarter I got in business, the more it helped me with my vacation rentals. And I worked 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So I had time to do it all. I never floundered on my job. I doubled Mondavi's business. I doubled Coppola's business. And then I started as president with Dow, and just left, just retired not too long ago as the president, and took them from 1,000 cases to hundreds of thousands of cases in the last 11 years. And just decided that it was during COVID that I said, I can't travel 48 weeks a year like this for business anymore. It's not worth it. It's not worth your health. It's not worth anything. And so they had moved me to the East Coast, and I have two houses in Charleston. That's where the beach houses are. And so I was happy. And during COVID, I just retired. And now all I do is my two vacation rentals. And one, I will say a funny thing is my husband is an electrical engineer, and he always was working in San Francisco, and he wasn't at home. And now that he's here in the same house with me, he says, holy moly, I had no idea how much it took for you to run, because we have actually four properties ourselves. Two are rentals and two are ours. So to run all these houses, he said, I had no idea how busy it kept you.
So I have a million questions. You've just revealed to me that you were like pretty much a famous wine entrepreneur celebrity in your ascent in that world. So I'm curious. First of all, it sounds like wine. It sounds like your days of traveling with Mars. Um, Lifestyle is an important element about the work that you do. And I'm curious what the parallel is with vacation rentals.
So food, wine, and travel. Those are my three passions in life.
So I guess vacation rentals fit into a little bit of all of them.
Well, they allow me to have a place when I go to Charleston, and they also allow me to have money to go to travel other places, to stay in Airbnbs, stay in VRBOs, go to the conferences. Also met you in Florence, Italy, when Antonio did his event. We were there at the World Summit. I was at Washington, D.C. when you did one of your inner circle groups or whatever. I think it was DC, where we were in a beautiful library. Or I travel so much, it's hard for me to remember where we went, but it was a wonderful place that we went, and I met some amazing people. And I remember meeting Adrian and talking to him on the side one time, and to Alan Egan, I think his name is, one time talking to him on the side. And all I could do is just want to get to my room and write down these ideas and go do everything that all of you guys were saying that makes a successful business.
Because hospitality is a whole new field for you. You were really good with sales and clearly business growth, but dealing with guests and making their vacations, did that require new skills to take on, or did you just pretty much naturally take into all of it?
It's dealing with the customer. I mean, I remember when I went to sell the for wine and going to talk to George and Daniel Dow, and they're asking me, "How did you go from one to another?" And I said, "If you believe in a product, you can sell it. It doesn't matter what the widget is, and you have to trust me. Every one of the business jobs I've had, my number one thing was to keep the customers happy." So that's it's very parallel to the vacation rental business. And I was staying in hotels all the time. And the further up the ladder I went, the better hotels I got to stay in. And I would realize, what are the amenities? What's really important to me? And I would stay in hotels regularly and I'd check in and somebody'd say, "Karen, we have 585 for you because we know last time you loved that room." That that just meant the world to me. Something like that. Or go into the bar to have a drink and the bartender remembers your name. So all of the little things I thought, okay, these are important. The way the beds, the heavenly beds, I remember that's one of the first things I did with my vacation rentals, all heavenly beds, all heavenly bed sheets and towels and everything. I want you to just sink down and be so happy in bed. So just it did it with a lot of parallels.
And I think your guys' business is quite unique. And I'm curious how you define success internally.
I define success internally if my life is happy and getting rid of the things, the jobs that I don't want to do, to get rid of those jobs. And that's another thing a conference has taught me to, give other people those jobs. So if I'm happy in life, if I have Mike is my world and he loves to travel too. So our goal is to make enough money that we can take we just got back from 6 weeks in Europe and had a wonderful time. Last year we spent 3 months in Italy. Those are the things that make me happy. So when there's a bad customer on the phone, I just close my eyes and think, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Europe, and just get through that customer.
Can you give me an example of Can you give me an example of some tasks that you don't enjoy or that don't make you happy and how you outsource them or got someone else to do it?
Yes. So I used to keep up with everything on spreadsheets like I did at work. And then I hired Owner Res, and I love that. I just hired Arthur Kolker, I think is his last name, for StayFi because I always thought, why can't I get all those other guest names that are staying? Because one of my properties hosts 18 people, the other holds 12. And I was getting one email at a time. And then I met Ryan, and Ryan said, I hate doing email blasts. And he goes, "Oh, well, that's my job. I do email blasts." I put together my own website, which was pathetic. And one of the conferences said, get a professional website, develop a professional logo, make sure you have a professional email address, every single thing.
And did you just get all that stuff immediately? You're like, okay, I get it. That's what it means to be a professional. I'm doing it. Or was there resistance?
Nope. Nope. I listened to you guys were the experts. So I went home and did every single one of them. I got professionals to do the photography. I hired somebody to do the housekeepers. I would interview the housekeepers and ask them, what makes you passionate? What makes you know that you've done a good job after cleaning the house? But you think about it, I've hired and fired people for 40 years. So it's not anything new. I know how to build a team. My husband, Mike, says, one of the best things you know how to do is to find people. And I have people for anything. I have a mobile golf cart guy that if somebody calls me at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night and they have a flat on the golf cart, I was 3,000 miles away in California, and I just call Matt. Matt goes over there and fixes the golf cart. And I have somebody that details the golf carts every 4 months so they look brand new. I mean, somebody said have extra, I can't even remember who it was, but have other things that you can rent to make more money. So I bought the first low speed vehicle, paid for it in 9 months. I bought a second one, then I bought a third one. And those are huge money makers. I rent them out for $700 a week. Almost every guest rents them. So it's not me. I just listen. It's not me that I have the brilliant ideas. You guys have them. I just follow them.
And do you trace that back to me listening to it for the first time? It's very clear, but do you trace that back as one of your sort of gifts in the professional world of asking questions and really listening?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things people have told me to do that I don't do. I don't go along with that because I don't think that's the right thing to do. But most of the time, I I've done the things that I think okay, and I've made some mistakes, and then I say, okay, well, this didn't work. I tried to put my houses on. I can't remember what the software is that figures out the prices for you. This is not too long ago, and I had a 30-day trial, and I was like, holy moly, that's not good for me because they don't know my business. Nobody knows my business like I know. And they rented a week in the summer for a ridiculously low price because they didn't understand what I needed to make. And this is one of the I can't remember who the lady, she does her own podcast and stuff, but I asked about finances. How do you know how much money to charge? And somebody brilliant, this is brilliant, said, figure out your entire annual expenses and then you decide what is your prime dates to rent, how many weeks. So for me in Charleston, it's 12 weeks from Memorial Day to Labor Day. I better make my money. And they said, okay, take your total expenses for the year, divide it by 12, and that's how much money you need to get every week to make sure you're going to be successful. So I did that, and that was just, I went us off to the races.
And now a word from our sponsors. Point Central provides smart property solutions for smart vacation property managers. They help streamline operations, protect the property, and enhance the guest experience using keyless access. Why? Because guests are tired after traveling, duh. And being able to go directly to that property with keyless access instead of stopping at a manager's office, this is no longer a luxury. This is a standard practice. Plus, everybody loves avoiding extra trips due to lost keys, not to mention the constant cost of rekeying. Point Central partners stay aware with an activity log of who enters and leaves the property, which helps keep track of cleaning and maintenance crews as well. You can also gain control of your utility bills with their smart thermostats. Schedule set points so guests won't be able to drastically raise or lower the temperatures, for instance. You can ensure the temperature stays consistent when the unit is vacant. Prevent costly maintenance projects caused by water leaks, mold, or HVAC issues with real-time alerts that allow you to be proactive. Visit pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Breezeway, whose property care and operations platform helps you coordinate, communicate, and verify the detailed work and deliver the best service experience to your guests. With tools for intelligent task scheduling, quality assurance, real-time work coordination, guest messaging, supplies management, owner reporting, and more, oh my! Breezeway helps thousands of short-term rental managers and hospitality operators increase your operational efficiency and eliminate hours of manual work. This allows you to boost your service revenue. It was created by the founding team of FlipKey, which was since acquired by TripAdvisor, and Breezeway is just elevating the experience at every property they touch. Visit breezeway.io/VRMB and get implementation fees waived. That's a $1,000 value right there. Okay, let's get back to the show. Do you have goals to grow the company, or is it at a sweet spot that kind of checks off all your boxes?
Well, this for 2023, I did my pricing the best I've ever done before. And I sent a request to the group and didn't really get any responses like I had hoped, but it's not an easy answer. Did I raise my prices too much, too fast? And so I made more money, I rented less nights. So is that a bad thing or a good thing? To be honest, I kind of think, okay, well, if I made more money, it's better on the house. And I had time to and I also, somebody said, put your money back into the house because I made so much money at work. that my CPA said, you don't need or you can't take money from these properties. You need to just invest it back in the properties. So I put an elevator in. I took out the old pool, put in a beautiful saltwater pool. I landscaped. We were in the March home and design for our pool at one of the second house. And I just put money back in them, and both of, on top of making the money every year, the property values have gone up almost threefold since we bought them.
So, have you been approached? I'm trying to understand if you've reached like this perfect sweet spot or if you're still looking to build and grow, because oftentimes the traditional business school of thought is the latter, but there's all these additional definitions and metrics that people in our industry can use. Where are you at?
I think that in 2023, it's going to be my best year ever. We might add one more house. We bought 38 acres in Charleston and thought, okay, we could put some places out there. Don't know if that's what we want to do. It takes so much work to do. I've had other people approach me and say, will you manage mine? And I just feel like that's like me babysitting for somebody else. I don't, because I don't think that other people, if I say, you know what, I really think that all the hardware in the kitchen needs to be replaced this year because it needs to be updated. I would say for myself, okay, we're going to do that. Other people might say, well, I just want to, tweak it out and make as much money as I can. And that's not, I mean, I'm fortunate that we've made more money every single year. We've been doing this since 2006 or seven. So it's a long time. So if I keep two and they do really well, and we have four properties, I mean, our goal is if we need more money, we're going to, not on Social Security or anything like that yet. So if we need money at some point, we'll sell a property or, take on somebody else's and help them. There's a lot of different opportunities, but I feel like I'm still learning on my own. Email marketing, I just sent out my third email marketing. That's brand new to me. I've learned through all of you guys listening to your podcast. I go to sleep listening to all y'all all the time. So I feel like it's osmosis in my head. And I, I was listening to, you just did I can't remember the lady's name, but somebody was talking about how to manage your linens. I think that laundry is my biggest headache right now. I got to figure out, with two properties and 18 beds, how do you maximize laundry? How do you get that done? What's the right system for that?
And I'm also curious, with your background and your experience in, I guess, just for lack of a better phrase, the corporate world, but one of real brands. I mean, you worked for brands that are some of the most valuable brands in their verticals. Where do you think is the most room for opportunity for vacation rental brands right now? Most of our listeners are property owner managers like yourself and property managers predominantly of other people's homes. Where do you see the evolution of branding in this new space?
I don't know that enough people do branding enough in this industry. I mean, only with two properties, almost every one of my reviews says Carolina Elegance. I developed the logo, I think, and also I've had brands beat into my head the whole time. Trust me, from Mars, you couldn't even think about a Butterfinger or Nestle Crunch. All you had to think about was M&M, Snickers, Three Musketeers, Milky Ways, and at Ben and Jerry's, if you were caught eating Haagen-Dazs, you'd be like hung up to the fire post or something. So brands have always been very important. The Mondavis, trust me, Francis Ford Coppola, he's all about branding, branding, branding. Dow, all about branding.
But what is it more than just saying the name?
It's not just saying the name, it's living, breathing, eating, sleeping that brand. What is best for that brand? What is your idea? So, Carolina Elegance to me, the reason I came up with that name is because I want the properties to be elegant. I want people to feel elegant when they get in the bed. I want them to feel like they're treated like they're royalty. They're in the Carolinas, and so my guest, I say Carolina elegance all the time, and I put it in capital letters, and I say Carolina elegance, till they speak it back to me and say, we love Carolina elegance. And I have logo signs on the front, and I think the logo is really nice. I have tote bags I give people that say Carolina elegance. I give them a writing pen that says Carolina elegance. We have the logos signs in the front doors out by the pool, and they're very tastefully done, so they see Carolina elegance the whole time they're there.
I paid a very, let's just say, expensive copywriter for a consultation. I think it was like $800 for an hour, something ridiculous. And he not only solved my copywriting challenge, but he also gave me this tip, which was, that keyword that you want to emphasize? Repeat it a whole bunch of times, like multiple times in the same sentence and or paragraph. And you will find that people use that exact same word when they're responding to you. And in your reviews, I was like, seriously, dude? He's like, no, that's the way it works. So I guess you're validating that theory.
Yes, that was a valuable $800 lesson.
It really was.
So I would say for people to come up with and it's so inexpensive, and we would use online designers called Design Crowd, and you can get them to design a logo for you for inexpensive, very inexpensive. And so I had designers from all over the world sending in designs for me to choose from for basically for free, until I decided which one I'm going with. And so it's all these things are not that hard. And I learned that from the wine label business. And so that's what I used to develop my logo.
Can I just say that I am such a sucker for a good wine label? Like, I don't even really care what kind of wine it is. I'll buy it if the label is good. The logo process, I will add, is straightforward if you can provide enough context of what you stand for. And ideally, some ideas of what the logo ultimately should look like. What I've found can be a very frustrating process for both the client and the graphic designer is there's no real clear context. There's no real clear feelings that are trying to be conveyed. And there's no idea of what a final product looks like. And so those unlimited revisions just keep going and going, and everybody drives each other crazy. It sounds like you started from a place of feeling.
Yes, I wrote a very detailed brief to give to the artist on what I wanted that logo to portray.
And finally, this is also along the lines of the last question. Wine is a world in which limited edition is on display. The limited production of highly personalized character in a bottle. And we argue that vacation rental owners and managers can leverage those dynamics of collector's items and limit the amount of production that they have, how many properties and how many nights are available, and charge up the messaging with attributes about the business that make it one of a kind. Do you see a future as more and more money comes into this industry, as big brands and hotel brands start getting involved? Do you see a future of lots of little limited edition brands? Or do you see a future of Mondavis that buy out all the little guys?
So that's a wonderful, wonderful question, because that same thing happens in the wine business, where there will be 7,500 different brands or labels. And then in 5-6 years, different people, Constellation, Diageo, Coppola, anybody will snap those labels up that are up and coming. And then it'll go down to like 4,000 labels. Some of them just fall out. And then all of a sudden, that comes up again, and people come up with their own labels. So to me, that is like the example of the short-term rental business. you can always be unique and different. You have to do something clever and something that you feel your own. One of the things I feel like I just learned, and I don't know if this is an answer to your question, but it's important to me that I realized I wanted to be all about families. So my niche, I mean, you always say you got to figure out that niche, it's going to be yours. And I figured out mine's about families. And so whether it's three couples with all their children come together at our houses, or it's grandparents, their children and their grandchildren come to the house. So once I decided that, then I said, okay, if that's what I'm going to market to, I don't want any more bachelor parties, no bachelorette parties. I don't want men's golf weekends where they bring in people, seedy people at night. I don't want big parties. I don't want all that stuff. Way before Airbnb said they don't want parties.
the the golf groups always bring in the seedy folks for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes. And so I decided that I wanted to go after this family oriented thing, and it has been hugely successful for me. And I have so many reviews where people they send me pictures of their children holding the toys that we have, or they'll say, we didn't even take our kids' toys out of the car the whole week, or my children have not been on electronics the entire week. They've been playing with your games and learning things. And that's what I mean, literally just saying that to you gave me goosebumps. That's what gives me goosebumps.
And so that was like a pretty intentional decision you must have made coming from a very corporate world. You're now putting yourself, Karen, out there at the front of this brand. You're the point person. It's your personal brand, really, that they're interacting with. Was that ever something that you hesitated about? Because I know a lot of people, when we encourage them to open up and share who they are and put their face out there, they get nervous.
I don't really get nervous, Matt. I probably should, but I don't. But when I moved to Charleston, I have 14 nieces and nephews, and I would invite them all over to spend the night or spend the weekend. And then I realized that's what made me happy and them happy, and the pool and the toys and the games and the books and building forts and all of that. And so it just solidified that that was a good idea. That was a good thing to do. Nobody told me to do that. I just needed to get away from crazy people and golfers and bachelorette parties and all that stuff. And um,
I
but
love
I,
your
I
detest for golfers. You just throw them into the worst groups.
oh my gosh, they are the worst group. Yeah, and I found out that the big companies that help you rent your businesses don't necessarily have the owner's best interests at heart, and that's when I said, okay, direct bookings, that's got to be a way to go. And I'd say my direct bookings are probably 35% of my business now, which I don't know if that's good or bad. To me, it's good because it came from nowhere. So I like that.
And what, in hindsight, so you're using a tool like StayFi to collect all the different guests who stay. What are you then doing post departure to ensure that those guests rebook or refer?
We have a note that Ryan and Naomi and I put together that we send out 3 days after they leave. But I talk to them, I talk to guests. One of the things that I learned in business, I think at Mars, is, and this is before you had cell phones, but learn how people communicate. So I've been really successful with that because now it's some people like email, some like text, like some like face to face, some like FaceTime, some like so whatever it is, I've always molded to whatever they like. And I do that, whatever they want. If they want me to call them or text them or whatever, and way before a guest ever walks through my front door, I already know exactly how to communicate with them, what they're coming for, what's going to make them tick, all that information, so that while they're there, I either leave them up. Looks like I got an error, but leave a message, or I uh, send them a text or give them a call to make sure that everything's 5 star. I also mentioned 5 stars from beginning to end. I want this to be a 5 star stay. What do you need to be 5 stars? I want you to. I call them and I say, what's so far about the house is 5 stars. What do you like the best? I
Sound like my
just
Uber driver from this morning.
yeah yeah just kind of pound it into them.
But I think is really neat is that this level of commitment and professionalism that you pour into two properties it's got its limits, right? You can't scale that level of personalization, or can you?
That's why I'm probably not going to do it. Trust me, I make enough on these two, plus what I've done in investments throughout my past life, that I'm going to be just fine if the two continue to do as well as they are. And if they don't, we'll sell one and take triple the profit and put that in investments. But I think that maybe one more. I don't know. But to me, I have to be able to give that Nordstrom's customer service. And I don't know how many more. I keep automating, Matt. Every time you guys say something else can be automated, I automate it. My one of my bosses said, I don't do anything I can pay somebody else to do for me. So I just thought that's great. So I keep automating things so I have more time.
Don't let us push you over the edge, because I do think in the end, uh, it is exactly the opposite. Those human one-on-one interactions that make your business so great. You said you didn't know how you got to 35% repeat. I'm really trying to focus on this coming year how the hospitality experience that you offer, the home that you're preparing, the expectations that you're setting, the guests feeling when they get into that bed, they feel elegant. These are marketing costs if you think about them from a long-term repeat or referral guest perspective. And it's actually way more enjoyable to be hosting families year after year. It adds a whole new layer of purpose.
Yes, yes. And I have guests that come back and they're had to go home and buy a doll. Like one thing, I'm very open to everything, and I have Korean dolls, babies, and black doll babies, and I have all kinds of toys for every nook and cranny of anybody. Every book, I have like probably 300 children's books at each house about every topic possible. And I got a copy of a picture not too long ago of a grandmother who said her little girl, she said, I never knew my grandchild would like a black baby. And she adored that baby at your house. So we had to buy her one when we got home. And she brought it with her this year. And she was so excited that the other one's still here. And she introduced her baby to the other baby and said, it's their sisters and stuff like that. Just warms my heart because that child and children that grow up like, Nat, I can't wait to come back here next year because I just learned to play ping pong, or I learned to swim in your pool, things like that. That's why I do this.
What a cool story to end on. And I'll admit, I was not exactly sure where that doll story was going, but in the end, it surprised me beautifully, which I think is a cool way to describe Karen too. In listening back to this interview, I'm reminded how much I enjoy talking to home runners who operate smaller, dare I say, lifestyle businesses. They are a completely unique kind of awesome from their larger vacation rental management counterparts. And they're always so surprising. Like before this conversation, I knew Karen was an amazing member of VRMB Communities, but I did not know, she never told me, that she was a former wine megamind. And I didn't know that she was responsible for architecting this growth of companies so huge. This surprise element of Karen's story is what makes her a very limited edition to me. These are the family, local, and specialized vacation rental brands that will surprise you with every stay. If this kind of story, this spirit resonates with you, consider joining Karen and me and over 1,000 limited edition home runners. Together, virtually, we are building one another's brands in ways that are one of a kind. You can join VRMB Communities at vrmb.com/join. Also, make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. Our 2023 Trends Report will be coming out in a couple weeks. You can sign up there just on the homepage at vrmb.com. Until next time.